Captain Elena Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive Caltharian dreadnought approach through the viewport. The alien vessel stretched nearly 3 kilometers in length, its dark purple hull gleaming with energy shields that could level entire cities. Behind it, a fleet of 200 warships blocked out the stars like a metallic storm cloud. "Captain, they're hailing us," reported Lieutenant Chun from the communications station. His voice carried the tension that every human felt when facing the Caltharian Empire. For 3 centuries, the galaxy's most powerful civilization had ruled over 6,000 star systems with absolute authority. "Put them through," Elena ordered, straightening her blue uniform. She had known this day would come eventually. The Caltharian Empire had discovered Earth's colonies, and now they demanded what they always demanded from new civilizations. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Admiral Vorthak, the Empire's most feared military commander. His reptilian features were marked by ceremonial scars that showed his rank, and his 4 arms displayed the golden bracers of imperial authority. Behind him, dozens of Caltharian officers stood in perfect formation on their bridge. "Primitive humans," Vorthak spoke in heavily accented Galactic standard, his voice carrying the arrogance of someone who had conquered 50 star systems. "I am Admiral Vorthak of the Caltharian Imperial Fleet. Your species has been found guilty of illegal expansion beyond your designated system boundaries." Elena kept her expression neutral, though inside her heart raced. Earth's 12 colony worlds had indeed expanded beyond the original system, building new homes on planets the Empire considered their territory. But humanity had found those worlds empty, with no signs of previous habitation. "Admiral, we established those colonies on uninhabited worlds. Our surveys showed no evidence of prior claims or settlements," Elena replied calmly. Vorthak's mandibles clicked in what Elena recognized as Caltharian laughter. "Foolish creature. All worlds in this sector belong to the Empire by right of conquest. Your ignorance of our laws does not excuse your crimes." The alien admiral gestured with one of his 4 arms, and the tactical display behind him showed the positions of all human colonies. Red targeting indicators appeared over each world, marking them for destruction. However, the Empire is merciful to those who submit properly. You will order the immediate evacuation of all illegal colonies. Your species will return to your original system and pay tribute of 50% of your resources annually. In return, we will allow your species to continue existing under our protection. Elena felt her jaw clench. 50% tribute would cripple human civilization, forcing billions into poverty and starvation. The evacuation alone would be impossible. The colonies housed over 200 million people, and humanity's transport ships couldn't move that many in the time frame the Empire would demand. "And if we refuse?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then, we will demonstrate why 147 species kneel before the Caltharian throne," Vorthak replied, his predatory smile revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Your colonies will be reduced to ash, and your homeworld will serve as an example to others who might consider defying us." The communication ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Elena looked around at her crew, seeing the fear and anger in their faces. The Defiance was humanity's most advanced warship, but it was just one vessel against an entire Imperial fleet. "Captain," called Commander Ross, the ship's tactical officer, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from their weapons systems. They're targeting New Geneva." Elena's blood went cold. New Geneva was humanity's newest colony, home to 12 million people, including her younger sister and her family. The colony had been established only 5 years ago, built in the ruins of an ancient alien city that had been dead for millennia. "Sir, incoming message from Earth Command," Lieutenant Chen reported. "Admiral Harrison wants to speak with you immediately." The screen switched to show Admiral Sarah Harrison, the highest-ranking officer in the human space navy. The older woman's gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her weathered face showed the stress of someone carrying impossible decisions. "Elena, what's your assessment of the situation?" Harrison asked without preamble. "Admiral, they have overwhelming force. 200 ships against our entire fleet of 37. Even if we fought perfectly, we'd lose within hours," Elena reported honestly. That's what our tactical computers are telling us too, Harrison replied grimly. The civilian government is demanding we negotiate, but the Empire's terms are impossible to accept. We can't evacuate 200 million people, and the tribute demands would destroy our economy. What are our orders, ma'am? Admiral Harrison was quiet for a long moment, and Elena could see the weight of command pressing down on the older woman's shoulders. Finally, she spoke in a voice filled with quiet determination. Elena, there's something you need to know. Something that's been classified at the highest levels for the past 50 years. The archaeological teams on New Geneva didn't just find ruins. They found something else. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of something? A weapons cache. Technology left behind by the species that built those cities. We've been studying it in secret, trying to understand how it works. The preliminary reports suggest it's more advanced than anything we've ever seen. Advanced enough to fight the Empire? We don't know. The technology appears to be some kind of planetary defense system, but we've never been able to activate it. The power requirements are beyond anything we can generate. Elena stared at the tactical display showing the Caltharian fleet. 200 ships carrying enough firepower to crack continents. Even advanced alien technology might not be enough to stop such overwhelming force. Admiral, there's something else. The Caltharians gave us a choice. Submit and evacuate the colonies, or they'll destroy everything. But they made a mistake. What mistake? They threatened our people first, then gave us time to think about it. They should have just attacked if they wanted to demonstrate their power. Instead, they're giving us a chance to prepare. Admiral Harrison's eyes sharpened. What are you thinking, Captain? Elena turned to look out at the stars, where humanity's colonies orbited distant suns. Each one represented millions of people who had left Earth seeking new opportunities and freedom. The idea of abandoning them to alien conquest made her stomach turn. I'm thinking about something my grandfather used to tell me. He fought in the Third World War, back when Earth was still divided into competing nations. He said the strongest militaries in history all made the same mistake. They assumed that superior technology and numbers guaranteed victory. And what did he say was the solution? Never fight the enemy's war. Force them to fight yours. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the ship. Commander Ross called out from his station. Captain, the Caltharian fleet is moving into attack formation. They're targeting New Geneva's orbital stations. Elena watched as the alien ships arranged themselves in a perfect battle line, their weapons charging with deadly energy. In 6 hours, they would begin the bombardment that would kill 12 million human colonists. Admiral Harrison, I need permission to take the Defiance to New Geneva immediately. If there's any chance that alien technology can help us, we need to try. Elena, even if you could activate those weapons, you'd be facing impossible odds. The Empire has never lost a major battle in 3 centuries. Then, maybe it's time their winning streak ended. Admiral Harrison studied Elena's face through the screen, seeing the same determination that had carried humanity to the stars despite overwhelming challenges. Finally, she nodded slowly. Permission granted, Captain. Take your ship to New Geneva and see what our archaeologists found. But, Elena, if this doesn't work, if the weapons can't be activated or aren't powerful enough, I want you to evacuate as many civilians as possible before the bombardment begins. Understood, Admiral. The communication ended, and Elena turned to her crew. 37 men and women who had volunteered to serve on humanity's most advanced warship, knowing that they might one day face exactly this situation. Helm, set course for New Geneva, maximum speed. Engineering, I want every bit of power our reactors can give us. Captain, Lieutenant Chen spoke up hesitantly. The crew is asking about the situation. What should I tell them? Elena looked around the bridge, seeing the faces of people who trusted her to lead them through the darkness ahead. They deserved to know the truth, even if it was terrifying. Tell them that the Caltharian Empire has given humanity a choice. Kneel or be destroyed. Tell them that in 6 hours, they're going to find out what happens when you threaten the wrong species. The Defiance leaped into hyperspace, racing toward New Geneva, while behind them the Caltharian fleet prepared for what they assumed would be another easy conquest. Admiral Vorthak had destroyed 47 civilizations in his career, and he expected the humans to surrender like all the others. But As Elena Martinez stared into the swirling colors of hyperspace, she thought about her grandfather's words. The Empire was about to learn that humans had spent their entire history fighting impossible odds. They had survived ice ages, world wars, and the long journey to the stars. Now they would find out if that experience was enough to face the galaxy's greatest military power. The ship's computer announced their arrival at New Geneva in a calm, electronic voice. Elena gripped the arms of her command chair as the Defiance dropped out of hyperspace, appearing in orbit around humanity's newest colony world. Below them, New Geneva hung like a blue and green jewel against the black of space. 12 million people lived on its surface, most of them unaware that their lives now hung in the balance. The planet's 3 orbital stations continued their routine operations, their crews not yet knowing that a Caltharian fleet was approaching with orders to reduce their world to ash. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the planetary government," Lieutenant Shin reported. "Governor Walsh wants to speak with you." "Put her through." Governor Maria Walsh appeared on the main screen, her dark hair streaked with premature gray from the stress of managing a frontier colony. Behind her, Elena could see the emergency command center that had been carved into New Geneva's largest mountain. "Captain Martinez, we just received word from Earth Command about the Caltharian ultimatum. How long do we have?" 5.5 hours before they begin bombardment, Governor. "We're here to investigate the archaeological site. There might be something there that can help us." Walsh's expression brightened slightly. "Dr. Reeves and his team have been working around the clock since we got the warning. They say they've made a breakthrough in understanding the alien technology, but they need more power than our fusion reactors can provide." "What kind of power requirements are we talking about?" "According to their calculations, we'd need the output of a starship's antimatter reactor, something like what you have on the Defiance." Elena felt a spark of hope. If the ancient weapons could be powered by her ship's reactor, they might have a chance after all. "Governor, I'm sending down a technical team immediately. Have Dr. Reeves prepare a full briefing on what they've discovered." "Already done, Captain." "And Captain, thank you for coming. The people down here needed to know that someone was willing to stand with them." Elena cut the transmission and turned to her engineering officer. "Commander Park, I need you to lead a team down to the surface. Take our best power transfer equipment and see if we can link our reactor to whatever the archaeologists found." "Yes, ma'am. What about the rest of the fleet? Are they coming to help us?" Elena hesitated. Earth's entire navy consisted of 37 ships, most of them smaller than the Defiance. Against 200 Caltharian warships, they would be slaughtered within minutes. "We're on our own for now," she said simply. As Commander Park gathered his team and prepared for planetary transfer, Elena studied the tactical displays showing New Geneva's defenses. 3 orbital weapons platforms, 46 atmospheric fighters, and a handful of surface-to-space missile batteries. Against a Caltharian dreadnought, they might as well be throwing rocks. But somewhere on the planet's surface, buried in the ruins of a civilization that had vanished long before humans left Earth, lay technology that might change everything. Elena had studied the preliminary reports during the journey to New Geneva, and what she read both excited and terrified her. The ancient alien race that had built the ruins called themselves the Architects. They had vanished roughly 50,000 years ago, leaving behind empty cities and mysterious technology that seemed far beyond even current Caltharian science. Most of their equipment was dead, drained of power by millennia of neglect. But the weapons cache was different. According to Dr. Reeves' reports, the Architect defense systems were still functional, protected by some kind of self-maintaining energy field. The human archaeologists had spent 5 years trying to understand how the technology worked, making only limited progress until the Caltharian threat forced them to accelerate their research. "Captain, Commander Park's team has reached the surface," reported Lieutenant Chun. "They're heading to the archaeological site now." Elena nodded, watching the chronometer that counted down to humanity's deadline. 5 hours and 12 minutes until the Caltharian fleet would arrive and demand their answer. If the ancient weapons couldn't be activated, or if they proved insufficient against the Empire's forces, then New Geneva and its 12 million inhabitants would become another cautionary tale about the price of defying Caltharian authority. But as Elena stared down at the planet where her sister lived with her young children, she made a silent promise. The Empire was about to discover that threatening human families was the one mistake no alien civilization should ever make. The galaxy was about to change, and Admiral Vorthak's perfect record of conquest was about to meet humanity's perfect record of survival against impossible odds. Dr. James Reeves wiped sweat from his forehead as he led Commander Park's engineering team through the ancient architect ruins. The underground complex stretched for kilometers beneath New Geneva's surface, its crystalline walls still glowing with mysterious energy after 50,000 years of abandonment. The power coupling systems are just ahead, Reeves explained as they navigated through corridors filled with alien hieroglyphs. We've managed to translate about 30% of the architect language, but their technology operates on principles we're still trying to understand. Commander Park examined the strange symbols covering the walls. Unlike human writing, the architect glyphs seemed to shift and change depending on the viewing angle, creating patterns that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. Dr. Reeves, what exactly are we dealing with here? The reports mentioned planetary defense systems, but no specifics about their capabilities. That's because we honestly don't know, Reeves admitted as they entered a vast circular chamber. The architects were clearly more advanced than any current galactic civilization, but they vanished completely. No survivors, no records of what happened to them. They just left their cities empty and sealed their weapons behind energy barriers we couldn't penetrate. The chamber they entered took Park's breath away. The room was nearly a kilometer wide, its domed ceiling covered in star maps showing the entire galaxy. But what dominated the space was the massive circular platform in the center, surrounded by towering crystalline structures that pulsed with soft blue light. This is the command center, Reeves explained, leading them toward the platform. Those crystals appear to be some kind of quantum computers, but they operate using principles our best scientists can't replicate. The power requirements to activate the full system are beyond anything we've ever seen. Park's team began setting up their equipment, preparing to establish a power link between the Defiance and the alien technology. As they worked, Reeves continued his explanation. 3 months ago, we managed to establish a low-power connection using our fusion reactors. We got just enough energy into the system to access what appears to be an information database. What we found changed everything we thought we knew about galactic history. What kind of information? Reeves activated a portable hologram projector, and the air above it filled with star charts showing the galaxy as it existed 50,000 years ago. Instead of the current map dominated by the Caltharian Empire, the display showed hundreds of different civilizations spread across the stars. The galaxy used to be much more diverse, Reeves explained. Hundreds of species, each controlling only a few dozen star systems. The architects weren't conquerors like the Caltharians. They were explorers and scientists who shared their knowledge with younger civilizations. What happened to them all? The Caltharians happened. 50,000 years ago, they were just another species struggling to survive on their homeworld. But they discovered something that changed everything. We're not sure what, but the architect records call it the Void Gift. Whatever it was, it transformed the Caltharians from a minor species into the galaxy's most aggressive conquerors. Park felt a chill run down his spine. You mean the Empire has been conquering civilizations for 50,000 years? According to the records, yes. They systematically destroyed every other major civilization in the galaxy, absorbing their technology and resources. The architects were among the last to fall, but before they died, they built these defense systems and sealed them away. Sealed them away for what? Reeves gestured toward the massive crystalline structures surrounding them. For the day when a species would arise that could challenge the Empire. The architects believed that eventually, someone would develop the technology and courage needed to break the cycle of Caltharian domination. Commander Park's engineering team had finished setting up their power transfer equipment. Lieutenant Hayes, his best electrical engineer, looked up from her instruments with a worried expression. Commander, we've established the connection, but these power requirements are incredible. If we channel our entire antimatter output into this system, it'll drain our reactor completely within 6 hours. Will 6 hours be enough to activate the weapons? We don't know, Reeves admitted. The architect database suggests the full defensive array requires a massive initial power surge to come online, followed by lower maintenance power. But we've never been able to generate enough energy for that initial activation. Park considered their options. If they drained the Defiance's reactor, the ship would be helpless against the Caltharian fleet. But without the alien weapons, New Geneva would be destroyed anyway. Dr. Reeves, what exactly are these weapons designed to do? That's where things get really interesting, Reeves replied, his excitement overcoming his nervousness. The architect records describe something they called a stellar disruption network. Each of their worlds was connected to a galactic defense grid that could harness the power of stars themselves. You mean they could weaponize solar energy? Not just solar energy. According to their records, the network could manipulate stellar fusion, creating focused energy beams that could reach across multiple star systems. The power output would be equivalent to concentrated supernova explosions. Park stared at the alien technology with new respect and fear. If the architects could harness stellar energy as a weapon, they possessed power that dwarfed anything in the current galaxy. Dr. Reeves, if this technology is so powerful, why did the Caltharians manage to defeat them? The records aren't clear, but it appears the Empire found a way to corrupt the network itself. Something called the void corruption that turned the architects' own defenses against them. Most of their worlds were destroyed by their own weapons. Above them, the chamber's star map began to change, showing the progression of Caltharian conquest across the galaxy. Red indicators spread from world to world like a plague, marking the fall of civilization after civilization. But the architects were clever, Reeves continued. Before they died, they modified the remaining network nodes to prevent the same corruption from happening again. The defenses can only be activated by species that haven't been touched by whatever the Empire uses to corrupt other civilizations. And you think humans qualify? Dr. Reeves, Lieutenant Hayes interrupted. I'm getting strange readings from the alien systems. It's almost like they're responding to Commander Park's presence. Reeves hurried over to examine the instruments, his eyes widening as he saw the data. This is impossible. The quantum resonance patterns are changing. The system is trying to establish some kind of connection. Park approached the central platform cautiously. As he got closer, the crystalline structures began to glow brighter, and strange symbols appeared in the air around him. Commander, step back, Reeves shouted, but it was too late. Light erupted from the platform, surrounding Park in a cocoon of energy that didn't burn but instead felt strangely familiar. The alien symbols swirled around him, and suddenly his mind was filled with images and knowledge that wasn't his own. He saw the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago, a tapestry of diverse civilizations working together to explore the cosmos and unlock the universe's secrets. He witnessed the first Caltharian attacks, when their ships began appearing without warning in star systems that had known peace for millennia. But, most importantly, he understood what the Void Gift really was. The Caltharians hadn't discovered advanced technology. They had made contact with something from outside the galaxy, something that fed on the destruction of civilizations and had been using the Empire as its tool for 50,000 years. The visions ended abruptly, leaving Park gasping on the platform while Reeves and the engineering team rushed to check on him. Commander, are you all right? What happened? Park struggled to his feet, his mind reeling from what he had experienced. Dr. Reeves, we need to contact Captain Martinez immediately. The situation is much worse than we thought. What did you see? The Caltharians aren't just conquerors. They're being controlled by something else. Something that wants to consume every civilization in the galaxy. Before Reeves could respond, the crystalline structures around them began to hum with increasing energy. The star map overhead shifted to show the current galaxy, with new symbols appearing over human colonies. The system is coming online, Hayes reported, her voice filled with amazement. Power consumption is stabilizing at sustainable levels. Commander, whatever just happened, the alien network is accepting our reactor output. Park looked around the chamber as ancient technology that had slept for 50 millennia began to awaken. The architects had waited 50,000 years for a species to arrive that could resist the void corruption and challenge the Empire. Dr. Reeves, how long until the weapons are fully operational? If the power transfer remains stable, approximately 4 hours. But, Commander, there's something else you need to know. The Architect database contains detailed tactical information about Caltharian military capabilities. Their ships aren't as invulnerable as they appear. What do you mean? The Empire relies on technology they've stolen from conquered civilizations over thousands of years. They've never developed much original science of their own. That makes their systems powerful, but also predictable. The Architect weapons were specifically designed to exploit Caltharian weaknesses. Park felt a surge of hope. If the ancient aliens had found ways to counter the Empire's technology, humanity might have a chance after all. Lieutenant Hayes, maintain the power transfer at maximum safe levels. Dr. Reeves, I need you to prepare a complete tactical briefing for Captain Martinez. Include everything about Caltharian vulnerabilities and how these weapons are designed to exploit them. Already working on it, Commander. As Park's team continued their work, the Architect technology around them continued to awaken from its long sleep. Somewhere in the ruins, massive weapon systems were powering up for the first time since the fall of the galaxy's last free civilizations. But Park couldn't shake the feeling that activating the ancient defenses was only the beginning. The visions had shown him something that terrified him more than the approaching Caltharian fleet. The Empire wasn't the real enemy. They were just the weapon being used by something far worse. High above New Geneva, Captain Martinez received Commander Park's initial report with a mixture of excitement and dread. The alien weapons were coming online, but the new information about the Empire's true nature changed everything about their situation. Captain, Lieutenant Chun called from communications. We're receiving a transmission from the lead Caltharian vessel. Admiral Vorthak wants to speak with you again. Elena steeled herself as the main screen activated, showing the alien commander's predatory features. But, this time, she noticed something different in his expression, a subtle shift that suggested he was no longer speaking entirely for himself. Human Captain, Vorthak began, his voice carrying an odd harmonic that hadn't been there before. Our sensors have detected unusual energy signatures from your colony world. You will cease all activities immediately and prepare for immediate surrender. Admiral, you gave us 6 hours to consider your terms. We still have 4 hours remaining. Vorthak's 4 eyes narrowed, and when he spoke again, his voice seemed to carry echoes of something vast and hungry. The terms have changed, primitive creature. Your species has accessed technology that belongs to the void. You will surrender that technology immediately or face complete annihilation. The transmission ended abruptly, and Elena found herself staring at a blank screen while her blood turned to ice. Whatever was controlling the Caltharian Empire had just revealed itself, and it was afraid of what humanity had found in the Architect ruins. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Vorthak stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical displays that showed human activity on the planet below. But the voice speaking through his mouth was no longer entirely his own. The humans have accessed Architect technology. The presence whispered through his mind, its thoughts mixing with his own until he could no longer tell where the alien influence ended and his consciousness began. This cannot be permitted. The cycle of harvest must not be broken. Vorthak's second-in-command, Captain Thex, noticed the change in his superior's demeanor. The Admiral's movements had become more fluid, almost predatory, and his 4 eyes now held a darkness that seemed to extend beyond physical sight. Admiral, shall we begin the bombardment early? Thex asked, checking the chronometer that showed 3 hours and 47 minutes remaining until their deadline. No, Vorthak replied, though the harmonic undertones in his voice made Thex's scales ripple with instinctive fear. We will allow them to activate their ancient toys. Let them believe they have found salvation. When their hope reaches its peak, we will demonstrate the futility of resistance. Sir, with respect, the energy readings from the planet's surface suggest they're powering weapon systems. Shouldn't we neutralize the threat immediately? Vorthak turned to face his subordinate, and Thex stepped backward involuntarily. The Admiral's eyes now held depths that seemed to stretch into infinity, filled with the accumulated darkness of 50,000 years of conquest. Captain Thex, do you know why the Caltharian Empire has never been defeated? Because our military might is unmatched, sir? No, because every victory feeds the void that guides us. Every civilization that falls makes us stronger. Every species that dies screaming adds to our power. Boardhack gestured toward the tactical display showing New Geneva. These humans believe they can challenge us with the toys of dead aliens. They will learn that the Architect's weapons are merely tools we have already learned to corrupt. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Martinez reviewed the tactical data that Commander Park had transmitted from the surface. The information was staggering, not just details about the Architect defense systems, but intelligence about Caltharian weaknesses that no one in the current galaxy possessed. Captain, the alien database contains complete specifications for every type of ship in the Caltharian fleet, reported Commander Ross from the tactical station. Their shield frequencies, weapon power cycles, even the molecular composition of their armor plating. It's like having the Empire's complete technical manual. Elena studied the data streaming across her screens. The Architects had fought the Caltharians for thousands of years before finally falling, and they had learned everything about their enemy's capabilities. What about our own defensive options? Elena asked. Can the ancient weapons actually stop a fleet that size? According to the database, each Architect world was equipped with stellar manipulation devices capable of channeling energy directly from the local star. The power output would be equivalent to hundreds of antimatter bombs detonating simultaneously. Elena felt a mixture of hope and terror. Weapons that could harness stellar energy would certainly be powerful enough to destroy the Caltharian fleet, but the implications were staggering. Commander, what are the risks of using that kind of power? The Architect records include detailed safety protocols, but Dr. Reeves warns that we're essentially playing with forces that could destabilize our entire star system if something goes wrong. Elena looked out at New Geneva, where 12 million people continued their daily lives unaware that their planet was about to become the testing ground for weapons that could reshape the galaxy. Captain, Lieutenant Chun interrupted. Priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Harrison needs to speak with you immediately. The main screen switched to show Admiral Harrison in Earth's orbital command center, her expression grim as she studied reports from across human space. Elena, we've received disturbing intelligence from our deep space monitoring stations. The Caltharian fleet approaching your position isn't alone. Long-range sensors are detecting massive Imperial formations moving toward all of our colony worlds. Elena's stomach dropped. How massive? Over 2,000 ships total. The largest military deployment in recorded galactic history. Elena, they're not just planning to make an example of New Geneva. They intend to destroy human civilization completely. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. Even if they could defend New Geneva using the Architect weapons, the Empire was simultaneously attacking every human world. There weren't enough ancient defense systems to protect them all. Admiral, how long do we have before the other fleets arrive? 18 hours for the closest colonies, up to 3 days for the most distant. Elena, if the weapons you found can work, we need to do more than just defend one world. We need to find a way to strike back at the Empire itself. Elena stared at the tactical displays showing the approaching Caltharian forces. The Empire commanded tens of thousands of ships across the galaxy, supported by industrial capacity that had been built from the resources of thousands of conquered civilizations. Ma'am, Commander Park reports that the Architect defense grid is almost fully operational. But he also discovered something else about the Empire's true nature. They're not acting independently. What do you mean? Elena quickly briefed Admiral Harrison on the information Park had received from the alien database. The revelation that the Caltharian Empire was being controlled by an extragalactic entity changed the entire strategic situation. Admiral, if this void entity has been using the Empire to harvest civilizations for 50,000 years, then every battle, every conquest has been feeding something that wants to consume all life in the galaxy. Harrison was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. Elena, if that's true, then this isn't just about human survival anymore. We might be the galaxy's last chance to break a cycle that's been destroying civilizations for millennia. The pressure, but, Admiral, we're just one species. Humanity has been spacefaring for less than 400 years. How can we possibly challenge something that destroyed civilizations far more advanced than ours? I don't know, Harrison admitted. But the Architects apparently believed someone eventually would. They built those weapons specifically for a species that could resist the corruption that turned their own defenses against them. The conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the Defiance. Commander Ross called out from his station. "Captain, the Caltharian fleet is breaking formation. They're moving to attack positions ahead of schedule." Elena turned to see the tactical display showing the alien ships accelerating toward New Geneva. Instead of waiting for their deadline, they were beginning their assault 3 hours early. "Lieutenant Shun, get me Commander Park immediately." Park's voice came through the communications system with background noise from the alien facility. "Captain, the defense grid is at 85% power and rising. But we're detecting massive energy buildups from the Caltharian fleet. They're preparing for full-scale bombardment. How long until the weapons are fully operational?" 22 minutes for basic defensive fire, approximately 1 hour for full stellar manipulation capabilities. Elena watched as the Caltharian dreadnought aligned its primary weapons with New Geneva's orbital stations. In minutes, the bombardment would begin, killing millions of civilians before the ancient defenses could respond. "Commander Ross, launch all fighters and prepare for defensive action. We'll buy Commander Park as much time as we can." "Captain, the Defiance against 200 Caltharian ships will be destroyed in minutes. Then, we make those minutes count." As the Defiance accelerated toward the enemy fleet, Elena thought about her grandfather's words about never fighting the enemy's war. The Caltharians expected either immediate surrender or hopeless resistance. They weren't prepared for humans who refused to do either. On the planet's surface, the Architect Command Center had become a hive of activity as human technicians worked alongside alien technology that was older than their civilization. Dr. Reeves monitored the power transfer rates, while Commander Park coordinated with Captain Martinez. "Commander, we're getting quantum resonance fluctuations from the Stellar Manipulation Array," reported Lieutenant Hayes. "The system is trying to establish a connection with our local star, but the process is incredibly complex." Park studied the alien readouts, gradually understanding the scope of what the architects had built. The defense network didn't just use solar power. It actually reached into stars and temporarily altered their fusion processes to create focused energy beams. "Dr. Reeves, what happens if we activate the stellar manipulators while the Defiance is in the line of fire?" "The energy beam would vaporize everything in its path, including our own ships. The architects built these weapons to sterilize entire star systems if necessary. Then, we need perfect timing and coordination. We get one shot at this." Above them, space erupted in brilliant flashes as the Defiance engaged the Caltharian vanguard. Captain Martinez had positioned her ship between the enemy fleet and New Geneva's orbital stations, using her superior speed and maneuverability to stay ahead of the aliens' targeting systems. But Elena knew they couldn't last long against such overwhelming odds. The Defiance's shields were already showing strain under the barrage of Caltharian plasma cannons. "Captain, multiple missile locks," Commander Ross reported. "They're firing everything they have." Elena watched dozens of antimatter warheads streak toward her ship, each one carrying enough destructive power to level a city. The Defiance's point defense systems engaged, destroying most of the incoming missiles, but several made it through. The ship shuddered under multiple impacts, and damage reports flooded in from across all decks. They had bought Commander Park 15 minutes, but the cost was becoming unbearable. "Captain," Lieutenant Shin called out. "Commander Park reports the defense grid is ready for limited engagement. He's requesting targeting data for the Caltharian flagship." Elena smiled grimly as she looked at Admiral Vorthak's dreadnought, its massive hull bristling with weapons designed to destroy worlds. The alien commander probably assumed that primitive humans would never dare target the Empire's most feared vessel. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. "Commander Ross, transmit targeting coordinates for the Eternal Dominion to Commander Park. Tell him that Admiral Vorthak wanted to demonstrate Imperial power. Let's show him what happens when you threaten the wrong species." On New Geneva's surface, ancient weapons systems that had slept for 50 millennia began to reach toward their star, drawing power from the very forces that had forged the elements of the galaxy. The architect's final gift to the cosmos was about to awaken, and the Caltharian Empire's perfect record of conquest was about to encounter humanity's perfect record of survival. The war that would determine the fate of the galaxy was beginning, and Admiral Vorthak was about to discover that some species should never be underestimated. The first architect weapon to fire in 50,000 years announced itself with a pillar of light that stretched from New Geneva's surface to the edge of space. The stellar energy beam, focused and amplified by alien technology, struck Admiral Vorthak's flagship with the concentrated power of a miniature star. The Eternal Dominion's shields, designed to withstand anything in the Caltharian arsenal, simply ceased to exist. The beam carved through 3 kilometers of armored hull in less than a second, emerging from the other side of the dreadnought before dissipating into space. Where Admiral Vorthak's command ship had been, only expanding clouds of vaporized metal remained. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Martinez watched in stunned silence as the most feared ship in the Caltharian fleet was reduced to atoms. The alien weapon had fired for exactly 1.3 seconds, but the power output had been equivalent to a sustained antimatter bombardment. "Captain," Commander Ross reported, his voice filled with amazement, "the Caltharian flagship is completely destroyed. No survivors, no debris larger than molecular particles." Elena felt a grim satisfaction as she watched the remaining Caltharian ships recoil from the sudden destruction of their command vessel. For 3 centuries, the Imperial fleet had been considered invincible. Now they faced weapons that could erase their most powerful ships without effort. "Commander Park, what's the status of the defense grid?" Park's voice came through the communications with background noise from the alien facility. "Captain, that was just the primary defense cannon operating at 20% power. We now have 6 additional stellar manipulation arrays coming online, plus point defense systems and shield generators." Shield generators? The architects built planetary defense shields powered directly by stellar fusion. According to the database, they can absorb enough energy to survive direct supernova exposure. Elena stared at the tactical display showing the remaining Caltharian fleet. 199 ships still surrounded New Geneva, their captains no doubt struggling to understand how their mighty flagship had been destroyed so easily. But Elena's moment of triumph was interrupted by an urgent transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Harrison appeared on screen, her face pale with shock. "Elena, we're receiving reports from across human space. The Caltharian fleets attacking our colonies have suddenly stopped their advance. They're holding position just outside our defensive perimeters. Why would they halt their attacks? We don't know, but there's something else. Our deep space sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace. Something big is coming, and it's heading directly for your position." Elena felt her stomach drop. The destruction of Vorthak's flagship had been impressive, but if it had only served to attract something worse, they might have made a terrible mistake. "Admiral, what kind of energy signatures are we talking about?" "Elena, the readings are off our scales. Whatever's approaching New Geneva makes the entire Caltharian fleet look like a scouting party." In the Architect Command Center beneath New Geneva's surface, Dr. Reeves was monitoring the alien database when new information began appearing on his screens. The data was written in the same shifting symbols that covered the facility walls, but the translation software was managing to decode it in real time. "Commander Park," Reeves called out urgently, "the database is updating itself. It's showing us information about something called the Void Heart. According to this data, destroying Caltharian command ships triggers an automatic response from the entity controlling the Empire." Park hurried over to examine the information. "What kind of response?" "A Void Heart is apparently a living ship powered by the accumulated life force of every civilization the Empire has destroyed. The records suggest it's essentially an extension of the extragalactic entity itself." "How big are we talking about?" Reeves checked the measurements and felt his blood turn cold. "According to these specifications, approximately 50 kilometers in length and capable of destroying entire star systems." Park stared at the data in horror. They had activated the Architect weapons hoping to save New Geneva, but instead they had attracted the attention of something that could consume their entire solar system. "Dr. Reeves, do the Architect defenses have any chance against something like that?" The records suggest that Void Hearts were what finally defeated the Architects. They're specifically designed to corrupt stellar manipulation technology, turning the defenders' own weapons against them. Above them, space began to distort as something massive emerged from hyperspace near New Geneva's outer moon. The Void Heart announced its arrival with a wave of darkness that seemed to bend light itself. Where the Caltharian ships had been elegant expressions of military engineering, the alien entity was something far more disturbing. The Void Heart resembled a massive jellyfish made of living shadow, its translucent body filled with swirling patterns that hurt human eyes to observe directly. Tendrils of pure darkness extended from its central mass, each one longer than a Caltharian dreadnought, and crackling with energy that seemed to devour the light around it. Captain Martinez stared at the entity through the Defiance's main view screen, fighting down waves of primal terror that seemed to emanate from the creature itself. This wasn't just a weapon or a ship, it was something fundamentally alien to their reality. "Captain," Lieutenant Chun reported, his voice shaking. "We're receiving a transmission from the entity. It's broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. Put it through." The voice that filled the Defiance's bridge didn't come from speakers. It seemed to manifest directly inside everyone's minds, carrying harmonics that resonated in frequencies human brains weren't designed to process. Creatures of flesh and feudal hope, the entity spoke, its words accompanied by images of burning civilizations and dying stars. "You have awakened tools you do not understand. The architects built their weapons to resist us, but, in the end, they too fed our eternal hunger." Elena forced herself to respond despite the overwhelming presence pressing against her thoughts. "We're not the architects. We won't make their mistakes. You believe your primitive species can succeed where beings of far greater wisdom failed? Observe the futility of resistance." The Void Heart extended one of its tendrils toward the nearest Caltharian ships, and Elena watched in horror as the alien vessels began to change. Their metallic hulls took on the same dark translucency as the entity, and their crews transformed into something that was no longer quite alive, but couldn't be called dead. "For 50,000 years, we have consumed the civilizations of this galaxy," the entity continued. "Each species that falls adds to our strength. The Caltharian Empire serves us willingly, but you will serve us regardless of your choice." On New Geneva's surface, Commander Park watched the alien database frantically updating with new tactical information. The architect records were providing real-time analysis of the Void Heart's capabilities, but what he read filled him with despair. "Dr. Reeves, the entity is trying to establish a connection with our stellar manipulation systems. If it succeeds, it can turn the weapons against our own planet. Can we prevent the corruption?" The architects tried everything they could think of: isolation protocols, quantum encryption, even destroying their own control systems. Nothing worked permanently. Park studied the tactical data showing the entity's approach toward New Geneva. In approximately 30 minutes, its corruption field would reach the planet's surface and begin infiltrating the ancient defense systems. "Dr. Reeves, there's something the architects didn't try. Something they couldn't try because they built the defense network to operate automatically." "What are you suggesting?" "Manual control. Instead of letting the systems operate independently, we maintain direct human interface with the stellar manipulation arrays. The entity can corrupt alien technology, but can it corrupt human consciousness?" Reeves stared at the command platform where Park had first interfaced with the architect systems. "Commander, the neural load from controlling stellar-level energies could kill you. The human brain wasn't designed to process that kind of power." "Maybe not, but it's better than letting that thing turn our own weapons against us." Park stepped onto the platform as the crystalline structures around him began to glow with increasing intensity. The architect database was now showing him detailed instructions for manual control of the defense network, but the warnings were stark. No organic being had ever attempted to directly interface with stellar manipulation technology. Aboard the Defiance, Elena watched the Void Heart continue its approach while the corrupted Caltharian ships began forming an attack formation around it. The entity's influence was spreading through the enemy fleet like a plague, transforming disciplined military vessels into extensions of its alien will. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy buildups from the creature," Commander Ross reported. "Whatever it's planning to do, it's going to be big." Elena made a decision that went against every tactical principle she had ever learned. Instead of retreating to a safe distance, she ordered the Defiance to accelerate directly toward the Void Heart. "Captain, what are you doing?" Ross asked in alarm. "Something that thing won't expect. Commander Park can't hold manual control of the stellar arrays while it's corrupting the control systems from orbit. We need to buy him time by keeping its attention focused on us." "Ma'am, that entity could destroy us without effort." "Maybe. But it's been consuming civilizations for 50,000 years by turning their own technology against them. It probably doesn't know how to deal with enemies who attack it directly with inferior weapons." The Defiance raced toward the Void Heart, while every tactical computer on the ship screamed warnings about the suicidal nature of their course. But Elena had learned something important from studying human military history. Sometimes the only way to win an impossible battle was to do something so unexpected that the enemy couldn't adapt in time. On New Geneva, Commander Park felt the alien technology merge with his consciousness as he took direct control of the stellar manipulation arrays. The sensation was indescribable. Suddenly, he could feel the nuclear fires of their star, sense the gravitational currents that bound the solar system together, and perceive energy patterns that human science had no names for. But he could also feel the Void Heart's corruption pressing against the edges of his mind, trying to find a way to turn the ancient weapons against New Geneva itself. The battle for the galaxy was about to be fought not just in space, but in the realm of consciousness itself. "Dr. Reeves," Park said, his voice echoing with harmonics from the stellar fires he now controlled. "Prepare for manual targeting of the Void Heart, and pray that human stubbornness is stronger than 50,000 years of galactic conquest." The architect weapons began to charge for a second time, but now they were guided by human will rather than alien programming. The Void Heart was about to discover what happened when it tried to corrupt a species that had spent its entire history refusing to accept the impossible. Commander Park felt the star itself bend to his will as 6 stellar manipulation arrays charged simultaneously. Through his neural link with the architect technology, he could perceive the Void Heart as it truly was, not just a living ship, but a cancer that had been feeding on galactic civilization for millennia. The entity's corruption pressed against his consciousness like acid, trying to turn his human thoughts into pathways for its alien influence. But Park discovered something the Void Heart hadn't encountered before, a mind that refused to accept the futility of resistance. "Dr. Reeves," Park said, his voice carrying harmonics from the stellar fires he controlled. "I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations from the entity. It's trying to establish a direct neural link. Commander, your brain activity is off the charts. The neural load from controlling stellar energy is pushing you beyond human limits." "I can handle it," Park replied, though he could feel his consciousness stretching to encompass forces that could incinerate planets. "The Void Heart expects me to break under the pressure, but it doesn't understand human psychology. We've spent our entire history doing impossible things because someone told us we couldn't." Above New Geneva, Captain Martinez guided the Defiance through a maze of dark energy tendrils as the Void Heart lashed out with increasing fury. The entity had expected the primitive human ship to be destroyed instantly, but Elena's tactical unpredictability was keeping them alive through pure audacity. "Captain, the creature is focusing its attention on us," Commander Ross reported. "Energy readings are climbing beyond our instrument's ability to measure." "Good. That means it's not concentrating on corrupting Commander Park's control systems." The Defiance rolled through a barrage of dark energy that turned nearby asteroids into clouds of ionized particles. Elena had never faced an enemy this powerful, but she had learned something important. The Void Heart was used to fighting opponents who tried to match its overwhelming force. It wasn't prepared for enemies who refused to fight by its rules. "Lieutenant Shen, patch me through to all human colonies. Priority override codes." "Channel open, Captain." Elena looked directly into the camera as she spoke to humanity across dozens of star systems. "This is Captain Elena Martinez of the U.S. Defiance. For 50,000 years, an alien entity has used the Caltharian Empire to harvest civilizations across the galaxy. Today that ends." "Captain," Commander Ross called urgently, "the Void Heart is changing tactics. It's withdrawing its tendrils and concentrating all power into its central mass." Elena watched as the entity compressed itself into a sphere of pure darkness, building energy for what could only be a planet-killing attack. If it succeeded, New Geneva would be reduced to molten slag, and humanity's only hope would die with Commander Park. Commander Park, whatever you're planning to do it now. On the planet's surface, Park felt the Void Heart's corruption make one final assault on his consciousness. The entity showed him visions of every civilization that had fallen before it, billions of species reduced to ash and memory, while their conquerors grew stronger from their deaths. But, instead of despair, Park felt something the Void Heart couldn't comprehend: defiant hope. Humans had never been the strongest or smartest species in the galaxy, but they possessed one quality that had carried them from a single world to the stars: the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Dr. Reeves, initiate simultaneous firing of all stellar arrays. Target coordinates locked on the entity's central mass. Commander, firing all arrays at once will drain our entire star's corona. The energy feedback could destabilize the system. Then, we better make it count. Park reached deeper into the stellar furnace than any organic being had ever attempted, drawing on nuclear fires that had burned for billions of years. The 6 stellar manipulation arrays responded to his will, each one focusing the power of their sun into coherent beams of destruction. The architect weapons fired as one, creating a hexagon of stellar fire that converged on the Void Heart's position. Each beam carried the energy equivalent of a small supernova, focused with precision that could cut atoms in half. The entity's scream of rage and pain resonated across multiple dimensions as stellar fire tore through its essence. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Void Heart encountered something it couldn't corrupt or consume: the focused will of a species that refused to kneel. But the entity wasn't finished. As the stellar beams struck its central mass, it began to transform, drawing on the accumulated life force of thousands of destroyed civilizations. The Void Heart's form shifted and expanded, becoming something even more monstrous than before. Park, the entity is evolving. Dr. Reeves shouted over the roar of barely controlled stellar energy. It's using the energy from our own attacks to strengthen itself. Park felt his consciousness strain under the neural load of controlling forces that could reshape star systems. But, through his link with the Architect database, he accessed one final piece of information that changed everything. Dr. Reeves, the Architects weren't trying to destroy the Void Heart. They were trying to send it back where it came from. What do you mean? The entity comes from outside our galaxy, from a region where different physical laws apply. The stellar manipulation arrays aren't just weapons. They're also dimensional portal generators. Park began to alter the firing patterns of the stellar arrays, shifting from pure destruction to something far more complex. The beams of stellar fire began to weave together in patterns that bent space-time itself, creating a gateway that led to the dark void between galaxies. The Void Heart realized what was happening and thrashed desperately against the dimensional portal, but its own transformation had made it vulnerable. The more it drew on the life force of destroyed civilizations, the more connected it became to this galaxy, and the easier it was to sever that connection. Aboard the Defiance, Elena watched as reality twisted around the alien entity. Space itself seemed to fold and tear as the Architect technology opened a pathway to the cosmic darkness where the Void Heart originated. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance, Elena ordered, though she kept the Defiance positioned between the portal and New Geneva. If something went wrong, her ship would be the first line of defense. The Void Heart made one final attempt to corrupt the portal technology, extending tendrils of dark energy toward New Geneva's surface. But Commander Park's will proved stronger than 50,000 years of galactic conquest. The entity's corruption met human stubbornness and shattered like glass against steel. With a sound that existed beyond normal hearing, the dimensional portal activated fully. The Void Heart was pulled inexorably toward the gateway, its massive form stretching and distorting as it was drawn back to the cosmic void where it belonged. The corrupted Caltharian ships, suddenly cut off from the entity's influence, began to revert to their normal configurations. Across the fleet, alien crews awakened from their nightmare of forced servitude, struggling to understand what had happened to them. As the portal began to close, the Void Heart made one final communication, not the overwhelming mental assault it had used before, but something that felt almost like respect. You are unexpected. Your species may survive what others could not. But know this, we are not the only things that hunger in the darkness between stars. The portal snapped shut with a thunderclap that shook space-time itself. The Void Heart was gone, banished to the cosmic void where it could no longer feed on galactic civilization. On New Geneva's surface, Commander Park collapsed as the neural link with the stellar arrays finally severed. Dr. Reeves and his team rushed to check on him, finding him unconscious but alive. Medical team to the archaeological site immediately. Reeves called into his communicator. Commander Park is down but breathing. Vital signs are stable. As Park was being treated, the Architect database began displaying new information. With the Void Heart banished, the ancient network was revealing its complete capabilities. The stellar manipulation arrays were just the beginning. There were manufacturing systems that could build fleets, terraforming technology that could restore dead worlds, and scientific databases containing the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of pre-Empire civilizations. Captain Martinez received reports from across human space as the Caltharian fleets, no longer under alien control, began requesting communication with human authorities. The Empire's captains and admirals, suddenly, free from the influence that had controlled them for millennia, were struggling to understand the scope of their actions. Captain, Admiral Harrison's voice came through the communications system. We're receiving surrender requests from Caltharian commanders throughout the galaxy. They claim they were being controlled against their will and want to negotiate an end to hostilities. Elena looked out at the Caltharian fleet surrounding New Geneva. The alien ships had powered down their weapons and were broadcasting peaceful intentions, but she couldn't forget the centuries of conquest and destruction the Empire had inflicted. Admiral, what are your orders regarding the Caltharian surrender offers? That's going to be a decision for the civilian government. But, Elena, there's something else. The Architect database Commander Park accessed. It contains technology that could revolutionize human civilization. Medical advances, energy systems, faster-than-light travel methods we never imagined. Elena thought about the implications. Humanity had gone from facing extinction to potentially becoming the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, all in the space of a few hours. Ma'am, what about the other species the Empire conquered? The database mentions that many were absorbed rather than destroyed. That's something we'll need to investigate. If there are surviving populations of pre-Empire civilizations, they deserve the chance to rebuild their societies. Over the following days, as human scientists worked with the Architect database and diplomatic teams began negotiations with former Empire worlds, a new picture of the galaxy began to emerge. The Caltharian Empire had indeed absorbed many species rather than exterminating them, using their knowledge and abilities to strengthen the Imperial war machine. With the Void Heart's influence removed, many of those conquered peoples began asserting their independence, creating a complex political situation that would require careful handling. But, for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy had a chance to develop without the shadow of an extragalactic predator guiding its destiny. Commander Park recovered from his ordeal with the stellar arrays, though he retained a strange connection to the Architect technology. He could sense the network's operations across multiple star systems and access information from the ancient database at will. Dr. Reeves, Park said during one of his medical evaluations, I've been reviewing the Architect records about galactic history. The Void Heart wasn't the only extragalactic entity they encountered. There are others out there in the cosmic void, and some of them make the Void Heart look harmless. Are they likely to find us? Not immediately. The barriers between galaxies are difficult to cross, and the Void Heart's banishment will serve as a warning to others. But, eventually, something else will try to infiltrate our galaxy. Park looked out at the stars through the medical center's window. When that happens, we'll need to be ready. The Architect network is powerful, but it's just the beginning. We need to rebuild galactic civilization, unite the surviving species, and prepare for threats that could dwarf anything we've faced so far. Elena Martinez stood on the bridge of the Defiance as reports continued to arrive from across human space and beyond. The galaxy was changing rapidly, with new alliances forming and ancient grudges being set aside in the face of larger concerns. The Caltharian Empire, freed from extragalactic influence, was fragmenting into dozens of smaller nations as different species reclaimed their independence. Some former Empire worlds were requesting membership in a growing coalition of free civilizations, while others chose to pursue isolationist policies. But, through it all, humanity found itself in an unexpected position, not as conquerors or rulers, but as the species that had broken the cycle of oppression that had dominated the galaxy for 50 millennia. The responsibility was overwhelming, but Elena knew her species was ready for the challenge. "Captain," Lieutenant Chen reported, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Liberation Council. They want to discuss establishing a permanent defense alliance against extragalactic threats." Elena smiled as she thought about her grandfather's words about never fighting the enemy's war. Humanity had refused to kneel to the Empire, and, in doing so, they had freed an entire galaxy from an ancient curse. The Void Heart had been right about one thing. Humans were unexpected, and, sometimes, being unexpected was exactly what the galaxy needed. "Lieutenant, inform the Council that humanity accepts their invitation. It's time to build something better than what came before." As the Defiance set course for the Council's gathering point, Elena looked back at New Geneva one final time. The world where everything had changed was already showing signs of recovery, its people rebuilding with the knowledge that they had helped save not just their own civilization, but every species in the galaxy. The age of the Caltharian Empire was over. The age of galactic freedom had begun. And, at the center of it all, humanity stood not as conquerors, but as the species that had proven that some things, freedom, hope, and the refusal to accept defeat, were worth fighting impossible odds to preserve. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in 50,000 years, that was exactly what it needed.